Unbelievable twist. Abandoned by her adopted son, she unexpectedly reveals $9.5 million. Ellen sat in the local library, caught in a sea of silence, feeling as if the walls were closing in on her. The dim light filtered through the dusty windows, illuminating the stacks of books that had long since become her haven. For over 30 years, her life revolved around family and duty, particularly her adopted son, Jake. But now, that very foundation was crumbling, and the weight of his abandonment sat heavy on her heart. He had opted for a life of tech entrepreneurship, abandoning the values of loyalty and hard work that she had instilled in him. Ellen felt lost, the vibrant life she envisioned for the two of them slipping away into the quiet routine of her nursing shifts and solitary afternoons. As days blended into one another, a profound sense of betrayal gnawed at her. She baked cookies, just as she always had, trying to recall the joy in his laughter. But the echoes of his absence filled the kitchen with an unbearable silence. Was it all her fault? Did he really believe money and fame made a person whole? The thought sent waves of anguish through her. Moments like this reminded her how every barrage of feelings had no clear soliloquy, only questions and churning doubts and a flock of memories that taunted her. While sifting through a stack of forgotten documents, Ellen stumbled upon an envelope marked with her father's initials. Inside lay the discovery that would change everything, a legacy she had no idea existed. A staggering $9.5 million from a brilliant inventor she barely knew. The magnitude of it hit her like a tidal wave. Suddenly, the mundane routines of her life collided with an explosive revelation that shook her to the core. Bursting forth beside the deep satisfaction of uncovering her heritage was an intense moral dilemma. She could slip into lavishness and security, throw herself into a whirlwind of luxury that she had never fathomed, yet there were neighbors struggling to make ends meet. The thought of it twisted her stomach. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. But what haunted her most was the image of Jake, now wrapped in a life steeped in excess, seemingly abandoning what truly mattered. Could she use her unexpected fortune to teach him the values he had disregarded? Or would her actions only deepen the chasm between them? The library air felt thicker as Ellen wrestled with resentment and longing. Her desire to confront Jake mixed with the urge to demonstrate the power of genuine success, a success rooted in connection, loyalty, and community. The library, once a refuge, became a battleground. Each afternoon spent poring over her father's documents only magnified her inner turmoil. She envisioned opening facilities, empowering the families in her community, even while the ache of losing Jake gnawed at her. The thought of reaching out to him loomed, filled with complexity. Love? Betrayal? Both feelings churned together, a volatile mix breathing life into her dreams, but also trembling with fear that he would dismiss her struggles as irrelevant. Ellen took a deep breath, the overwhelming mix of emotions enveloping her like the whispering pages of the books surrounding her. What path could she carve? The weight of her father's legacy pressed down relentlessly, igniting possibilities, yet also deepening the void left by her son's choices. Would she abandon her hopes or summon the courage to confront her past? The shelves bore witness to her powerlessness, reflecting her emotional battles. The quiet echoed back one resounding question. Could love still thrive amidst profound betrayal? Ellen's fingers trembled slightly as she closed the envelope, sealing away the secrets of her father and the shock of her newfound fortune. It was time to make a decision, not just about the inheritance, but about the kind of person she wanted to become in the wake of this discovery. It wasn't merely about wealth. It was about how she would respond, how she would define her legacy moving forward, especially in relation to Jake. The anxiety was palpable as she allowed herself to imagine the possibilities. With nearly $10 million, the world felt simultaneously vast and unbearably small. A new home, perhaps in a more vibrant city, a restored life of comfort. Yet, as she considered these options, guilt tugged at her heart. All around her, families and friends faced hardships that her wealth could alleviate. Women at the nursing station struggled with bills, children missed meals. The disparity loomed large, gnawing at her sense of justice and prompting her to re-evaluate everything she thought she wanted. Yet the thought of confronting Jake was even more daunting. Could she somehow bridge the divide that had grown so wide? He lived in a world defined by aspirations of success that she feared could chase him further away. Perhaps if she extended a hand, offering him part of her inheritance with the intention to guide him back to the family values he had cast aside, she could reach him. But would he see it as charity or an act of love? Ellen wrestled with each possibility, knowing that her next move could reshape not only their lives, but the moral compass guiding her. Weeks rolled on, filled with both sorrow and flickers of hope. Each day she returned to the library, deeply immersed in her father's writings, uncovering his philosophies, learning about the man whose name now shimmered with new meaning. Her thoughts transformed into plans as she envisioned transforming her father's legacy from mere wealth into a resource for healing. Motivated and re-energized, Ellen laid out her vision, not just giving money, but implementing a system where individuals could reinvest in themselves, a community built on collaboration, mutual benefit, and shared hopes. As she scribbled notes, her mind raced with ideas: local workshops, mentorship programs, a community art space. What if she created a hub that empowered those who had been overlooked, showcasing their talent and connecting them to one another? But within this newfound purpose simmered an uncertainty that clouded her enthusiasm. Facing Jake loomed ahead, still unresolved. How could she convey the lessons of ambition paired with responsibility? Would he see the value in reinstating familial bonds? As these questions weighed heavily on her, Ellen felt caught between two identities: the mother yearning for her son's return, and the architect craving to carve a new path. One evening, as she returned home from the library, the weight of decision-making settled heavily on her shoulders. She ventured into the kitchen, stirring the ritual of baking, a familiar solace. Yet each ingredient tossed into the mixing bowl became a metaphor for everything she couldn't ignore: the potential relationship with Jake, the responsibilities of sudden wealth, and the hope she had to rekindle joy and connection. As the cookies baked, the sweet smell filled the air, rising like her inclination to spread warmth and love. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. A message from Jake flickered on the screen. A simple question: "Can we talk?" Ellen's heart raced. This was it. The moment she had both feared and anticipated was upon her. The chasm between them edged closer to a potential bridge. She inhaled deeply, recognizing this was the chance. Her voice could once again reach him. Swallowing her apprehension, Ellen began to formulate her response. Would she confront him about his choices, her feelings of betrayal, or would she lead with love? As her fingers hovered over the screen, she realized that this decision could redefine everything. The time had come to face the darkest edges of both her heart and legacy. Would her message lead to healing or cement the silence? Ellen felt a surge of adrenaline as she deliberated over her response. The message from Jake had sent her thoughts spiraling. It was the kind of invitation laden with so much potential, but also profound uncertainty. It was paradoxical, this longing for connection intertwined with the fear of rejection. Her mind churned through memories of their last encounters, the awkward silences, the forced smiles, the misunderstanding that had driven him away. Those fragments of their relationship weighed heavily on her, an emotional anchor dragging her into trepidation. She wondered if Jake regretted the distance, if he even wanted to bridge the gap, or if her newfound wealth would only serve to intensify his perception of her as someone separate, someone unrecognizable. With each passing moment, her resolve shifted. Love demanded vulnerability, a quality she had learned to confront in the musty pages of her father's books. Perhaps, if she embraced this love fully, it could cut through the thick wall they had built between them. But how could she present herself, as a broken-hearted mother or a prosperous heiress? The duality both terrified and fascinated her. Taking a deep breath, she thumbed her message, typing cautiously, "I'd love to. Let me know when and where." Sending it felt less like a commitment and more like an offering, an olive branch extended toward the unknown. Ellen hoped he would grasp it, but she also prepared for the possibility that he might pull away again. The next few days passed with agonizing slowness. Ellen busied herself with plans for her father's legacy, drafting outlines for workshops and potential partnerships. She found solace in her work, pouring her heart into initiatives that bore the weight of her aspirations. Yet every time she encountered an obstacle in her plans, the thought of Jake tugged at her intuition. How could she lecture others about building a supportive community when her own family dynamics were frayed? The day of their meeting arrived, leaving her jittery with anticipation and dread. She chose a small cafe, a quaint place filled with the warmth of patterned upholstery and the welcoming fragrance of coffee that twirled in the air like old memories. As she waited, Ellen practiced her speech, not a rehearsed mantra, but a heartfelt approach. She wanted Jake to know that her intentions weren't merely transactional or paternalistic. What she sought was a partnership forged through the bonds of family. When Jake finally walked in, he looked different yet somehow familiar, a mix of hesitant resolve and youthful weariness. Her heart quickened, recognizing the remnants of the boy she had nurtured, but now cloaked in guarded adulthood. "Hey, Mom," he said, his voice tinged with caution. The word felt heavy, as though he'd set a burden between them. Ellen gestured toward a seat. "I'm glad you came." They exchanged small talk, but the air crackled with unspoken issues. Finally, Ellen decided to voice her discontent, but had a revelation as she spoke. "Jake, I've been thinking about how we fell apart. It feels like we've lost each other in all this. With my inheritance, it's about more than money. I realize I want us to rebuild, not just for us, but for the community." He looked at her skeptically, confusion flickering in his eyes. "You think throwing money at problems is going to fix everything?" A lump formed in her throat. This was the moment to confront her fears instead of succumbing to them. "No, and it's not about throwing money. It's about understanding and empowering those who've struggled. I want to create a space where people can find hope and build their futures." Jake leaned back, the tension between them palpable. Ellen watched him, sensing the walls he had built to protect himself. She took a deep breath, determined to push through his barriers. "I could use your help," she offered, feeling her heart race. The word help was rife with implications, a connection between them she wanted to cultivate. As he processed her words, she could see a flicker of interest, perhaps even the urge to reconnect. Yet deep down, Ellen understood she was standing at a crossroads. This conversation would define not just their relationship, but the very fabric of the legacy she sought to create. Would Jake see this as a pathway to reconcile their past, or resist it and retreat further into solitude? The question loomed just as she felt an impending tension, one that would demand a choice, both from him and from herself. Ellen felt the gravity of this moment press upon her, sensing a decision was imminent, not just for Jake, but for her own path ahead, as their pasts intertwined with the potential of their future. Would she flee from confrontation, or would she stand her ground? The cafe buzzed around them, yet in that singular moment it felt as if the world had narrowed to just the two of them. Would this be the moment they began to heal, or would it plunge them deeper into silence? Ellen held her breath, battling the urge to fill the silence with trivialities that would only mask the deeper issue at hand. Jake's expression was unreadable, a tapestry of hurt and confusion that both pierced her heart and ignited her determination. The murmur of other patrons faded into a distant hum, leaving only the two of them suspended in this moment, one that would determine the trajectory of their lives. "Why do you want my help?" he finally asked, skepticism lacing his tone. "What do you think I can offer?" His defensiveness stung, but Ellen recognized it as an opportunity. How often had she felt unworthy, questioning her own abilities? It was time to confront that, for both of their sakes. "You have something valuable, your voice, your perspective. I've been so wrapped up in my own world that I forgot the most important part. The people," she admitted, each word a weighted admission that unraveled her fears. Jake's brow furrowed. He seemed caught between the dimensions of disbelief and curiosity. "People don't want to hear what I have to say. They'll just see me as someone related to you, a spoiled kid with a rich mom." "No!" The word escaped her, stronger than intended. "You're so much more than that. I see you, Jake. I see the potential that you have to help others connect with us. You could be the bridge between this legacy and the community I want to serve." As the intensity of her passion laced through the air, she sensed a shift in him, discomfort giving way to reflection. "Just because you have money doesn't mean you can just fix everything," he said, his voice steadier now, almost pleading. "Money can't buy love or understanding." Ellen was taken aback. He was right, and yet she had to pivot the conversation towards hope rather than defeat. "You're absolutely right. But it can help create platforms for voices that have been silenced. It can foster education and opportunities." She leaned in closer, her heart racing with vulnerability. "I want us to create something genuine together, a legacy that reflects who we are as a family while empowering those around us. Isn't that worth exploring?" Jake hesitated, his gaze darting toward the window. Ellen followed his eyes, watching as a couple strolled past, their laughter a stark contrast to the heaviness between them. She yearned for that same warmth, the joyful outburst of connection that seemed terrifically out of reach. "If you want me to help, I need to know you're committed to this emotionally, not just financially," he said, biting his lip as if weighing the significance of his words. "Money can't replace what's lost. We've both suffered, and I won't let you hide behind your wealth." His words resonated in the core of her being. Did she really think that wealth would shield her from accountability? Suddenly, she felt an awakening, a call to self-awareness that demanded more of her than just financial investment. "Jake, I promise I won't hide," she said, the conviction in her voice gaining strength. "But I need you to understand, I want to fix this, for us, for those we care about. I don't know how yet, but I'm navigating through my fear." His eyes met hers, gauging sincerity. For the first time, Ellen didn't feel the weight of her status drowning the conversation. Instead, it began to feel like a hopeful starting point. "Can we come up with something together? Something beyond us? A way to encourage other people who feel as lost as we do?" She hoped, desperately, that the seed of connection would finally take root. Jake's hesitation lingered like mist in the morning light. "It's going to take time, Mom. Healing doesn't happen overnight." "I can wait as long as necessary," she replied softly. That was the moment an unspoken understanding was forged. Ellen sensed that Jake was beginning to peel back the layers that had kept them apart. Yet within the budding hope, uncertainty lingered, a reminder that paths of rebuilding are often labyrinthine. And just as she thought the tide was turning, the cafe door swung open, revealing a figure from her past, a reminder of her struggles, someone who could threaten the fragile peace they were attempting to build. Her heart raced, fear swelling within her. Who was this person, and how would their presence impact the conversation she was striving to redefine? Would it undo everything, shattering the moment of connection they had just begun to forge? The atmosphere pulsed with tension, leaving Ellen wrestling with the echoes of her past, bearing down on her fragile present. Would she have the strength to confront this unexpected visitor? Or would it unravel the new thread of hope she dared to possess? Ellen's breath hitched as she locked eyes with the unexpected visitor, Maya, an old colleague whose ruthless ambition had once overshadowed her own. The cafe around them faded, replaced by swirling memories of competitive pressures and late nights spent doubting her worth. Maya had clawed her way to the top, often stepping on others to get there. "Ellen," Maya called, her voice dripping with faux warmth. "What a surprise to see you here." Jake's posture immediately shifted, protective instinct kicking in as he turned to gauge her reaction. Ellen felt a wave of apprehension wash over her. Right now, they were on the brink of healing, yet this figure from her past could threaten to dismantle everything. "Maya, it's been a while," Ellen replied, forcing a steady tone. She knew this was a pivotal moment not just for her, but for Jake as well. Maya's gaze flickered between them. "I see you're nursing family issues," she remarked, an edge creeping into her voice. "Business so slow you had to bring your son to a coffee shop for a heart-to-heart?" The sting of her words felt like a well-aimed jab. Ellen could have retorted, could have unleashed 2 years of pent-up frustration, yet the choice before her was evident. She could either retreat into defensiveness, allowing the shadows of her past choices to dictate the conversation, or embrace the vulnerability she had recently committed to. "Actually, we're discussing ways to reconnect and create something meaningful," Ellen said, standing a bit taller. Each word felt heavy, but she willed them to resonate with purpose. Jake watched her carefully, the corner of his mouth hinting at a smile. For the first time, he seemed to embody hope. Maya raised an eyebrow, dismissing Ellen's resolve. "You really think that a little heart-to-heart can fix years of disconnect?" she scoffed. "We both know legacies are built on power and influence, not feelings. Your son will always be seen as your shadow, Ellen." The shadows of inadequacy threatened to engulf her, but Ellen felt a flicker of determination. Jake wasn't a shadow. He was his own person, so full of potential. "I disagree," she said calmly. "We are defining what it means to rebuild our relationship. It might not fit your playbook, but it's ours to write." The flicker of surprise in Maya's eyes was palpable. "Emotional investments can't replace what's lost," Maya replied, trying to regain her footing. "And money, Ellen, even if you could make something admirable, won't last without grit." The room felt electric as the potential for personal confrontation crackled in the air. Ellen was painfully aware of Maya's critique, and yet instead of retreating, she leaned forward with conviction. "You're right," she asserted. "But what the past taught me is that grit is rooted in authenticity. If I don't address my weaknesses head-on, the legacy I want to create means nothing." Jake shifted in his chair, his eyes lingering on her, a mix of pride and vulnerability. Maya attempted to mask her surprise, but it slipped through. "I never expected you to grow, Ellen. It'll be interesting to see if you can push through that." As the words hung between them, Ellen sensed a transformation brewing within her. This confrontation was both revealing and liberating. With Maya standing there, openly critiquing her, Ellen felt nudged into a space of self-examination that she needed. "Can we take this conversation outside?" Jake asked suddenly, his voice steady as he looked at Maya, the protective energy radiating off him. It was a challenge, a refusal to accept anyone diminishing their progress. "Why not?" Maya shrugged, playing it cool. As they moved toward the exit, Ellen felt a surge of clarity. This clash wasn't just an intrusion, it was an unveiling of latent strength. She would no longer let past insecurities dictate her future. But just as they reached the door, a pause settled within Ellen, a realization that this interaction would ignite a question within her soul. What else about herself was still hidden? Uncertainty shadowed her, yet the determination to uncover and navigate through her vulnerabilities overtook her fears. The door opened, allowing a gust of fresh air and new possibilities to sweep in, but with it came the weight of hidden truths beckoning her forward. With a quiet determination, Ellen stepped into the unknown, prepared to confront whatever came next. What would she discover about herself as they faced this challenge? Ellen stepped out of the cafe, the crisp air wrapping around her like a refreshing balm. It was a clear day, the sun bright but not overpowering. As they walked toward an area away from prying ears, she could feel Maya's eyes on her, almost piercing, as if judging, assessing. Part of her wanted to crumble under that scrutiny, but the other part, no, the stronger part, was determined to stand firm. Jake walked closely beside her, a quiet force of reassurance. She glanced at him, his expression calm, yet she saw the tension in his jaw. This was unfamiliar territory for them both, and with each step, Ellen felt the weight of her past swirl around her, competing with her resolve to embrace her present self. "Ellen," Maya began, her tone now tinged with condescension, "this little act of vulnerability is commendable, but don't forget the real world waits out here. A heart-to-heart won't change the reality of your situation." Ellen squared her shoulders, preparing to respond, but a different thought crept into her mind. For years she'd felt the constant need to measure up, and here stood Maya, her past adversary, spouting notions that set her teeth on edge. But instead of feeling bitter or defensive, Ellen recognized an opportunity. "Maybe it's time to redefine what the real world looks like," Ellen stated, her voice infused with a newfound strength. "I've chosen a different path, and quite frankly, it feels a lot more authentic than anything I've done before." Maya smirked, the slightest twitch of her mouth suggesting she found Ellen's assertion laughable. "Authenticity may feel good, but it doesn't pay the bills, does it? You think your son wants to hear about feelings when he could be seeing you thrive in your career instead?" At the mention of Jake, Ellen felt a surge of defensiveness mixed with guilt. Had she made the right decision so far? Were these heart-to-heart moments truly what Jake needed? She had been so focused on reconnecting with him that she hadn't truly assessed her own goals, her own ambitions. "Yes, he deserves more than what's been handed to him," Ellen countered, her voice gaining volume. "But it's not about bills or climbing some corporate ladder anymore. It's about building trust, relationships, legacies that matter. I need him to see me as more than just a title." Jake's eyes glowed with a mixture of admiration and curiosity. He remained silent, absorbing her words, an unspoken support radiating from him. Maya, on the other hand, rolled her eyes, dismissing Ellen's passion. "What you both don't understand is that the world doesn't care about your feelings," Maya replied sharply. "It only rewards those who show grit, not softness." "Maybe that's what your version of success looks like," Ellen shot back, "but I'm rewriting my definition. It's time to embrace the softness, to build something transformative that goes beyond what society dictates." With each exchange, Ellen felt her conviction solidify. It wasn't just about proving Maya wrong. It was about affirming her choice to embrace vulnerability in pursuit of something real. This journey was going to be about evolution, not mere survival. Maya huffed, crossing her arms. "It'll be interesting to see you fail," she said, approximately the same confidence with which Ellen had once questioned her own goals. Instead of taking the bait, Ellen turned her gaze toward Jake. She remembered the kindness in his eyes, how he had believed in her when she struggled to do so herself. The fear and uncertainty from the past were being transformed into a foundation for her future. "Let's step back, Maya," Ellen urged, her tone now firm yet calm. "I know you think your way is the only way, but I'm not here for a showdown. I'm here to explore what's within." With that declaration, Ellen felt the encumbrance of her former self begin to lift. She no longer needed to measure her worth by the standards set by others. She could navigate through these challenges with open heart and mind. As Maya walked away, Ellen breathed in deeply, revealing both vulnerability and strength. There was no denying how that confrontation had sparked change within her. But as they turned to leave, a question lingered in the air, echoing as they stepped back onto the sidewalk. Would she find the courage to face not just Maya, but the deeper truths hidden within herself? Ellen's gaze shifted toward the setting sun, its golden hues promising transformation and possibility. Little did she know, the next challenge waiting for her would force her to confront the very essence of her ambitions. Ellen felt a familiar tension coil within her as she and Jake distanced themselves from Maya's sharp words, still echoing in her mind. The fresh air felt less enticing now, thickened with a blend of anxiety and determination. Would she truly find the courage to confront what lay beyond her previous fears, including her ambition? "Let's sit for a moment," Jake suggested, guiding her to a nearby bench. He settled beside her, easing the immediate weight of expectations and reality with his presence. She glanced at him, catching the nuanced concern in his eyes. "Do you think I really meant what I said back there?" she asked, her voice softer now, stripped of the adrenaline from their encounter. I'm trying to redefine everything, and I don't fully know where I'm headed." "What you said sounded more like a revelation than a mere statement," Jake replied, his tone encouraging. "You're trying to find your footing after so long. You deserve that space to explore." Ellen leaned forward, elbows resting on her knees, the sun's fading light reflecting off the pavement. "What if I fail? What if this new path doesn't lead to a solution for me or for Jake?" "Failure is just part of the process, Ellen," he reassured her. "What if it means uncovering something even better? You seem committed to learning about yourself in a way you never have before. Isn't that worth pursuing?" Jake's words ignited a flicker of courage within her. Perhaps she couldn't foresee every detail, but the possibility of discovering her true self felt undeniably urgent. With each passing moment the shadows lengthened around them, but Ellen felt illuminated by the introspection igniting within. "You're right. I've spent too much energy drowning in someone else's expectations and notions of success." She glanced up at him, her resolve crystallizing. "I need to take a step back and reassess the life I want for myself and Jake." "But how?" Jake asked, curiosity weaving through the earnestness in his demeanor. "Where do you begin?" A flicker of self-doubt pierced through her confidence. "I need to reconnect with my passions. What was it that inspired me before life got in the way? Maybe it's time to dive back in, explore writing again, or even consider putting together a project that focuses on personal expression. But I'm afraid of judgment, of opening myself to critiques again." "Fear is an indicator of growth," he offered, his steady gaze urging her to dig deeper. "What if you use that fear to fuel your authenticity instead? Show your journey. Be honest about what you're trying to do." Ellen nodded, feeling a sense of reflection wash over her. It was both exhilarating and daunting. She had fought through silence for too long. Now, it was time to speak up, to create not just for herself, but as a model of resilience for Jake. She envisioned the possibility of sharing her journey, the upheaval, the honest conversations, and the exploration of identity amidst vulnerability. "But then there's the tangible outcome," she countered, more to herself than to him. "What if I pursue something and it doesn't pay off? What if I spend all this time only to face disapproval like I did with Maya?" "Then you'll have learned something," he replied, his voice steady and imbued with encouragement. "Look for the value in the process itself, not just the end goal. Maybe that's your new definition of success." Ellen leaned back against the bench, a smile slowly breaking through the anxiety. She considered Jake's input, stitching together the idea of embracing this journey not just as a series of achievements, but as a tapestry of personal experiences. "What do you want it to look like?" Jake asked gently. "I want to elevate voices, mine, and those of people who grapple with the same uncertainties," Ellen replied, a firm tone breaking through her doubts. I want to create a space that celebrates resilience, that sheds light on emotions rather than hiding them. In that moment, clarity washed over her. A tapestry did have threads of complexity intertwined, each color and texture telling a different story. And perhaps that's precisely what she needed to embrace. As they sat together, a vibrant possibility unfurling beneath her skin, she realized that this awareness wouldn't just alter her trajectory, but could also create a ripple effect in Jake's life, teaching him the importance of authenticity. Just as they prepared to leave, a notification dinged from Jake's phone. He glanced down, the initial enthusiasm dimming slightly as bewilderment crossed his face. "Ellen, you might want to take a look at this," he said, urgency creeping into his tone. She leaned closer, curiosity sparking. What possibly awaited her on that screen could alter everything she had just begun to define. A surge of apprehension welled within her. Would this new twist offer the resolution she craved, or would it demand courage beyond what she thought she had? Ellen sensed the shift in the air, the weight of anticipation hanging between them as Jake's gaze fixed on his phone. It felt as if the world around her had stilled, drama saturating the moment. "What is it?" she urged, her heart thumping with trepidation. "It's an article," he started, his voice trembling with a mix of excitement and uncertainty. "It's about a woman, she's a writer too, who just landed a major publishing deal after sharing her struggles with being a single mother. You won't believe the numbers they're offering her." Her gut twisted, a whirlpool of skepticism and hope. "How much?" $9.5 million, Jake replied, his eyes wide, caught between marvel and disbelief. Ellen felt as if the ground beneath her was shifting. $9.5 million, an almost unreal sum, and a lifeline she'd only dreamed of. But amidst the numbers, a question flickered in her mind. Was that truly what success looked like? She thought of Maya and her poison-tipped comments, tearing down the world Ellen had once envisioned for herself, questioning if the value of a life could be measured in dollar signs. "Do you think it's real?" she mused, unexpected doubt creeping in. "Who knows?" Jake replied, "but it shows what's possible when someone decides to share their truth." The juxtaposition of the numerical figure with the emotional weight it promised left Ellen in conflict. Yes, this woman's journey could be inspiring, but the echoes of self-doubt loomed large. She had lived in a world where worth was dictated by achievements that often felt hollow. What if I published my own experiences, something honest? Would it draw interest? Would people even care? Jake's silence spoke volumes, and she continued, brushing her fingers against the smooth wood of the bench. "How could I even do that? I've shielded my vulnerabilities for too long. What would I write about? The failures, the fears, the moments of despair?" "That's your strength, Ellen," Jake encouraged gently, nudging her shoulder playfully, as if to shake the proverbial clouds from her head. "It's your journey people want to read about. The authenticity, the learning curve, not just the successes. That's where real connections happen. But how?" The question rattled in her mind. She grew restless, grappling with the breadth of her aspirations, teetering on the edge of excitement and anxiety. The nagging thought repeated in her head. Was her voice powerful enough? Suddenly, a thought struck her, a challenge she hadn't considered. Instead of merely longing for recognition within the industry, why not create a narrative that wove her experiences, her evolution, her connection with Jake into something tangible? The vision morphed in her mind's eye, a blog, perhaps, or a series of essays that captured her path emerging from the shadows of others' expectations. "Jake, if I did this, would you help me? Guide me through it? What if I wrote a piece about how to reclaim one's identity while being a mother?" "Of course," he affirmed. "I'm here for that, every step of the way." Ellen felt a pulse of purpose spiking her heart as fear morphed into exhilaration. The journey of transformation wasn't just about her self-discovery, but sharing that story with others, creating a ripple that could inspire them in their own challenges. Perhaps through her words, she could amplify forgotten voices and in turn heal herself. Before she could dwell on the enormity of what lay ahead, Jake's phone chimed again, breaking her focus. "Oh, wait, there's more," he said, glancing down. It seems this woman faced considerable backlash too, igniting a heated discussion on social media, encouraging people to share their own stories. There's even a hashtag trending, vulnerable voices. A wave of consideration washed over her. This felt like the spark she needed, an entry point into the community of people grappling with similar struggles. She could join their conversations, inspire change, or at the very least, test her own resolve in the face of scrutiny. Ellen took a deep breath, the fears still whispering but slowly being drowned out by a newfound determination. "I want to be part of that conversation, Jake. It's time to speak out, to share those hidden corners of my experience. Perhaps vulnerability is the way to carve out authenticity." "Then let's make it happen," Jake said, a knowing smile brightening his expression. As she looked up, the last rays of sunlight began to slip from the horizon, but the night sky was only the beginning of her journey. The knowledge that others awaited her voice activated something within her. Undeterred, Ellen found herself buzzing with anticipation and creativity. The thought of what she could do ignited a fierce determination. But as exciting as this direction felt, the reality of exposing herself set in. Could she truly brave the vulnerability needed to engage? The price of authenticity weighed heavily on her. With every ounce of resolve, she shut down her inner fears, preparing to explore this terrain. She straightened up, ready to take a step into the unknown, despite the shadows lingering in her mind. In that moment of clarity, she became acutely aware that the road ahead required immeasurable courage, demanding her to face external judgment as well as unforgiving inner critics. The urgency burned in her veins, propelling her forward. "Ellen?" Jake's voice cut through her reverie. "Are you ready?" She hesitated a breath before answering, embracing the gravity of her decision, leaving her answer hanging in the air. And as those next steps loomed, the final question echoed in her mind. What would she risk to confront this new chapter of her life? And what if the journey revealed depths within her she'd yet to explore? Ellen took a moment, the weight of Jake's question pressing heavily upon her. A chorus of doubts swirled in her mind, each whisper louder than the last. Was she ready to unveil the layers she had tucked away for so long? There was a strangeness in the air, a palpable shift that redefined her sense of self, yet buried within that fear lay an insatiable curiosity, a desire to express her story amid the trials she had long shielded from the world. "I think I am," she finally replied, her voice firmer than she felt. The courage stirred within her was unsettling, but it was a fire she yearned to ignite. "I want to be more than the walls I've built." Jake's grin broke through her apprehension, and he leaned closer, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "Then let's lay down some groundwork. First, what stands out in your experience? Start with those honest truths you've been hiding." Closing her eyes briefly, Ellen sifted through memories like a stone, skipping across a lapping surface. The nights spent alone, the fears of inadequacy when balancing motherhood with ambitions, the feeling of being untethered, tossed between career aspirations and personal responsibilities. "I struggle with being enough for my children, enough as a writer, enough for myself. Sharing that feels like exposing a wound." A soft laugh escaped Jake's lips. "That's the very essence. It's raw. It's relatable. You think you're alone, but I bet countless others see themselves in your journey. Vulnerability is what resonates most deeply." Yet she still possessed reservations. The very thought of defending her experiences against judgments and criticisms made her heart quicken. What if she was met with disdain? What if people called her irrelevant, mocking her attempts at honesty? It's just so terrifying to think I'll put myself out there, to have my struggles dissected like some sort of spectacle. Every great story has that risk, Jake replied gently, but your story matters. Think about that $9.5 million writer. She stirred up a dialogue. You can do the same. This could empower you and others who follow your journey. His words flowed over her like a gentle tide, reassuring and coaxing fear out of its hiding place. The thought of embarking on this venture transformed trepidation into the musical hum of possibility. Okay, she breathed, newfound determination filling her lungs. I want to start with a single essay, then build from there. Perfect, Jake encouraged, his enthusiasm contagious. But what's the angle? What do you want your opening piece to convey? Maybe the dichotomy of my identity, she pondered aloud. How being a mother doesn't diminish the author within me, but amplifies it. I want to challenge the narrative that choices define limitations. A spark ignited in Jake's eye. That's powerful. It has layers of complexity. You're reclaiming your narrative, flipping the script on what society often views as conflicting. The simmering excitement coursed through her, drowning out the shadows cast by uncertainty. It's time I redefine my understanding of success. If I can unlock that within myself, maybe I can enable others to see their potential too. Ellen felt her pulse quicken with an exhilarating mix of clarity and fear. The possibilities were endless, and the prospect of sharing her voice stirred something primal. She aged in her mind all the moments she refrained from speaking up, unheeded, unexpressed. The thought of losing control had consumed her until now, but it was time to reclaim that power. As they sat in the fading twilight, an idea crystallized. She would invite her audience onto her journey, muzzle the fears that kept her quiet, and embrace authenticity as her badge of honor. But even as resolve swelled inside her, whispers of doubt flickered. What would happen when the facade was torn down? Would the vulnerability liberate her or expose her fragility? Ellen, focus on your strengths, Jake reminded, sensing her hesitation. You've navigated much more than most ever could. This journey is not just personal, it's a path toward resilience. Right, Ellen nodded, taking a breath, picturing her first words forming in her mind's eye. The stories that define us should guide us, not bind us. As the last of the sun dipped away, she felt a familiar surge of energy. Ellen realized that with each word she planned to write, she could confront her neglected identity and find new footing within her swirling existence. She glanced at Jake, uncertainty etched across her features. Can I really pull this off? The reply was immediate and unwavering. You've already begun by just wanting to try. The truth rang clear in her mind. The scars of her past had nurtured hidden strength. As darkness enveloped them, the next step in her journey pulsated with potential, almost within reach. It was time to rise, and as she did, a deeper question whispered through her thoughts, tightening her chest. How will the world react to the woman behind the words once she bears her soul? Ellen stood at the threshold of a pivotal moment, her fingers trembling slightly as they hovered over the keyboard. These would not be just words. They would be an unveiling, an authentication of her journey through pain, motherhood, and newfound ambition. Each keystroke represented a courageous step forward into the light she had long suppressed. It was time to transform her fears into a narrative, an authentic chronicle of resilience that would artfully bridge her past with her hopes for the future. Days turned into weeks, and with every painstaking sentence, she wrestled with layers of vulnerability. What did it mean to be a mother who felt fractured, yet determined? Could she elicit understanding from those who had been entrenched in judgment? But Ellen quickly realized that her own self-doubt was the very thing she yearned to shatter. Her narrative began to breathe life. She poured her essence into stories of sleepless nights, heartaches weighed down by unfulfilled dreams, and the relentless whisper of inadequacy. As a montage of raw revelations streamed from her heart to the page, a sense of clarity emerged. This was her truth, the tapestry that reflected someone who had once felt lost but had found a stronger purpose. The comforting presence of Jake grew close, his unwavering support fueling her ambition. He had become an unexpected ally, cheering her on as she navigated her personal revolution, and it fueled her desire to reach back and uplift others beyond mere success. Empathy blossomed like a flower breaking through concrete, a concrete that had once confined her. Amid the preparations for her first public sharing, a blog launch, Ellen took a deep breath, aware of the culmination of everything she had been through. A subtle awareness flickered within her. She had redefined what strength meant. Now she wanted to return to the heart of her aspiration, to reach out to Jake, offering him space within this journey, recognizing the potential for healing together. "Jake," she said one evening as they shared a meal, encouragement bubbling in her tone, "I want to include you in this project. I think it's crucial for us to share how we've struggled as a family, together." His brows raised in surprise before a long, thoughtful pause followed. "You think that people will want to hear from both of us?" "Oh, absolutely. Your experiences are just as relevant, more so now than ever." She leaned in, earnestness spilling from her heart. "We can create a dialogue, challenge perceptions together. This is our curveball against a world of surface-level success." Jake mulled over the proposition, meeting her hopeful gaze. "That sounds incredible, Mom." The word felt more like a powerful bond than affection. "But I want to make sure that it's genuine for you, too. It's a big leap." "It is," she replied, conviction hardening in her voice. "But I want to showcase what it means to navigate ambition while staying true to our family values. This could connect us and lead to something bigger. We could really inspire others." As the weeks rolled on, the blog began to take shape, transforming into a coexistence of perspectives, her transformative journey intertwined with Jake's narrative. They would showcase the cracks, expose their vulnerabilities, and finally redefine what family legacy looked like, one grounded in openness rather than secrecy. The response was overwhelming, far surpassing her expectations. Ellen's vulnerability caught fire online, resonating with individuals who shared their own tales of struggle and resilience. Messages flooded in, thanking her for breaching a topic often concealed behind closed doors. The blog morphed into a space of empowerment, uniting voices that had felt muted in the face of adversity. But as the community grew, so too did the fear of exposure transform into purpose. Ellen had achieved not merely recognition, she felt a profound sense of personal fulfillment. The recognition extended beyond her as people saw themselves reflected in her journey, sparking their own transformations. A significant moment came when Jake approached her, his expression a mixture of pride and something deeper, understanding. "You did it, Mom," he said one late afternoon while browsing the comment section filled with gratitude. The warmth flooded her senses, knowing they were building something pivotal, meaningful. "I couldn't have done it without you, not just for your support, but for sharing your voice." His smile bore testament to their newfound connection. "We did this together," he emphasized. "It's brought us back to the roots that went overlooked for far too long." Ellen felt an overwhelming surge of satisfaction swell in her chest. This was a true legacy. They forged something from the ashes of troubled communication, a living testament to the power of vulnerability, honesty, and growth. They stood as a beacon, using their story not just for personal gain, just as a platform to amplify others' voices, to usher in a new era of understanding within their community. With newfound confidence, Ellen realized she wasn't just a mother or an author, but a powerful catalyst in her world, transformative and tenacious in her mission. On the eve of her blog's anniversary, as she sat in the dim light of her office, they received a message that would define their journey further. The foundation she had envisioned, a community project to uplift families, was accepting funding offers. Eyes on the same horizon, she understood that this was only the beginning of their journey, not just her own, but for those who had shared their stories. Ellen smiled, her heart soaring with pride, reflecting on the profound growth she had experienced. She had emerged from the shadows of the past, fortified enough to embrace the future, unfettered by fears, doubts, or the constraints that once confined her. She had proven that through vulnerability blooms resilience, and within resilience lies immense strength. Now, as she peeked at the blank page before her and prepared to pen the next chapter in the story of her life, one thing remained clear. This shift had shaped her. She had transcended mere happiness. She had found fulfillment. And to her audience, she wanted them to feel that same pulse of potential. Their stories mattered. Would they stand alongside her, embrace their ambitions, and redefine their narratives? Ellen felt it, an insistent need to reach out through the screen, to call on every individual who had ever struggled to find their place against a landscape of expectations, to believe in their own capacity for transformation. Weaving words together like the intricate tapestry of humanity, she was ready to reassure them of just one thing: their voices deserved to be heard. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about this remarkable ending, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support for a journey of true personal overcoming. Don't wait even one more second to share.